in no uncertain terms the other day that no one is above the law.
Yeah.
That said, the indictment of a former president, of perhaps candidate for president, would arguably tear the country apart. Is that your concern as you make your decision down the road here? Do you have to think about things like that?
Look, we pursue justice without fear or favor. We intend to hold anyone who was criminally responsible for the events surrounding January 6th, for any attempt to interfere with the lawful transfer of power from one administration to another, accountable. That's what we do. We don't pay any attention to other issues with respect to that.
So if Donald Trump were to become a candidate for president again, that would not change your schedule or how you move forward or don't move forward?
Say again that we will hold accountable anyone who was criminally responsible for attempting to interfere with the legitimate, lawful transfer of power from one administration to the next.
Okay, so that is the perfect answer, and here's why. It's not his job to keep the country from being torn apart. It's not his job to bind Americans together in unity and harmony. It's not. That is above his pay grade, you see. That is a job, and here's the scary part, for the President of the United States. That is why when Richard Nixon got away with, burglarizing the Democratic National Committee headquarters with burglars and paying them with slush fund money, which is what Watergate was about, he got away with it, but the cover-up is what got him, right? It was the cover-up. And we all know that all of a sudden, you had a testimony from a man named Alexander Butterfield who went before the Senate and was asked about whether or not there was a recording operation in the White House, whether or not they recorded any conversations in the White House. And Alexander Butterfield revealed that there was a taping system that Richard Nixon requested be put on the phones, be put in the Oval Office, be put in the dining room, be put everywhere. I don't even know if he had it in the residence or not, but just everywhere. He wanted everything Richard Nixon uttered, Richard Nixon felt were pearls. And he wanted to totally remember everything that he ever said in his drunken stupors, okay? And so there were recordings. And when the recordings were subpoenaed, the Supreme Court had to weigh in, and the Supreme Court said, oh, yeah, there's a crime fraud exception, and there is nothing that protects a president from doing criminal things. So, yes, you have to turn over the tapes. Well, 8 minutes of the tapes disappeared, as you know, but the majority of the tapes clearly showed that Richard Nixon was, directing a cover-up of a crime. And that's what got Richard Nixon. That's what got him in trouble. Okay, but Richard Nixon, instead of facing criminal charges, was pardoned by the next president, who was not elected by anybody. Not elected by anybody. It was Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford replaced Spiro Agnew as the vice president because Spiro Agnew had to resign for a tax fraud that he was involved in. And then Gerald Ford came from the Senate, and he became the vice president of the United States. And then when Richard Nixon was facing impeachment and removal, and we know he was going to be removed because the Republicans in the Senate went over and told him that, that's when he resigned. And instead of being charged and prosecuted, Gerald Ford decided, for the sake of unity, he would pardon Richard Nixon. That tore the country apart as well. The pardon cemented the fact that Gerald Ford would never be an elected president in the United States, that he was unsuitable to be the president of the United States as far as the American electorate would say. They said, no, we're not going to vote for him. There's no way. He shouldn't have pardoned a criminal. Man committed a crime. He needed to stand trial. So either thing that you do, whether you would pardon a Donald Trump, can you imagine if Joe Biden pardoned Donald Trump to avoid this tearing apart of the United States, which is what is being presented to Merrick Garland as the result of holding a man who did all of this cheating, all of this lying, all of this fraud, all of this that is still rippling throughout our country, that is still affecting election laws in many states, that has propped up election deniers and cheats and liars and people who, worked their state legislatures and said, find me some fake electors in the state legislature. Find me those. Doug Mastriano, Carrie Lake, Kelly Ward, all these, if Biden would pardon Donald Trump after Donald Trump was, actually charged and facing accountability, it would tear this country apart. If Donald Trump faces prosecution and is put on trial, it will be all over the TV and everybody will be able to see it, and everybody will there will be some maggots in this country who still support this crime boss, who still support this fraud, who still support this seditionist, this treasonist, who allowed for the United States Capitol to be attacked and never, this is another part of it that we found out last night. This was a part that I was very interested in. We found out last night that, we found out during the last hearing, and that's why the last hearing was so important to have, that Donald Trump did nothing for the 3.5 hours that the Capitol was being attacked. Now, why was that important? Well, that's important not just because he's the commander in chief and not because it was a dereliction of duty, which is basically a military charge. It's not a civilian's charge. It's something you could be charged with if you were not a civilian, if you were in uniform, by your commanding officer, okay? So why was it important? It was important because we needed to know the truth about what they were saying on the TV. They were telling you on the TV and bamboozling all these little maggot ladies that the problem with the Capitol attack was Nancy Pelosi's problem. The problem with the Capitol attack was that Nancy Pelosi didn't call the National Guard, right? Well, Nancy Pelosi isn't allowed to call the National Guard. That's one thing. And the other thing is Trump didn't call the National Guard. But they've been lying on the television the whole time. Now, I knew they were lying on the television because on January 4th, the acting Secretary of Defense, Chris Miller, who only lasted as our acting Secretary of Defense for 10 weeks of his entire life, wrote a memo saying that he would give Muriel Bowser what Muriel Bowser asked for, but only 340 National Guardsmen, and they would be unarmed, and they would be doing traffic, okay? They would be out on the street. But they had been on television. Chris Miller had, same guy. He had been on television with his chief of staff, this miscreant Kash Patel. What is Kash Patel doing being the chief of staff to the acting Secretary of Defense of the United States of America? Okay. So we know that Esper and the whole DOD was gutted so that Donald Trump could try to give a stand down order to the National Guard on the front end and on the back end, never call them into action. That's exactly what happened. And Chris Miller apparently has been lying on the television, because there's no penalty for lying on the television, saying things to Americans about how there were 20,000 National Guardsmen at the ready. They were there, but Nancy Pelosi didn't want them. That is one of the other giant, disgusting, disgraceful lies that have permeated the MAGA world, maggots' heads. The truth is, that lie has finally been put to rest. Now, the first person to lie about that was Kayleigh McEnany. I don't know. She was the first person on January 6th at 3:36 in the afternoon. She tweeted, at President and then at real Donald Trump's discretion, the National Guard is on the way, along with other federal protective services. We reiterate President Trump's call against violence and remain peaceful. Okay, so the National Guard was never called. That was the first evidence of the lie. The next evidence of the lie was the next day. Donald Trump on January 7th, remember the outtakes? So while that was fun to watch and amusing and it didn't fail to entertain, the reason why they played that is because they wanted you to hear Donald Trump saying that I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders. Well, guess what? That was a lie too. And And Chris Miller and Kash Patel and Mark Meadows all were on Fox News talking to Sean Hannity and telling them, well, we had the National Guard at the ready, but Nancy didn't want them. Nancy didn't want. Under oath, Chris Miller said he had no National Guardsmen standing by. The president never ordered any National Guard to be assembled. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to randyrhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.